Now, very few people can say they've locked horns with President Donald Trump in the same way that President Zelensky did on Friday in that astonishing meeting. But has it derailed Ukraine's chance of a peace deal?
No, says friend of the president, Piers Morgan, who says he's had far worse shouting matches with Trump.
And with you.
I was going to say, there's very few people...
Hang on, are we just going to ignore the fact I haven't been here for 1,453 days?
No, we're not going to ignore that fact.
Do I not even get a hug?
No, apparently...
Come on.
No, what?
Come on.
No, I don't want a hug.
Come on,
oh,
come on,
God,
come on.
Okay, yeah.
Come on.
I was going to say...
Piers, I don't mind.
Come on, mate, come on. Come on, mate.
We don't mind hugging.
Yeah,
God, you've moved on so fast, haven't you?
I've got a couple of new husbands now.
Moved on so fast.
She doesn't hug me either.
No, I don't do hugs, as you know. I've locked horns with you, Piers Morgan.
Yes, you have, Susanna Reid.
On many an occasion.
Yes, you have.
But you have locked horns with President Trump. Friday was a disaster, optically, in the White House. But you must have sat there watching, thinking, I've had worse blow-ups with President Trump, and the next minute he's on the phone telling me I'm welcome to play golf.
Well, he was actually on the phone that morning to me.
So did you wind him up so much on Friday morning?
I was trying to think what I said. I mean, it was quite funny. I was in a black cab in London, and my phone going, and I could see I have him under DJT in my phone. DJT? And it was flashing up. I thought, should I take it in a cab? It was like, I thought, we can't not take a call from the president. So Mr. President, I'm just looking at the cab driver's eyes like that. And we spoke for about 15 minutes.
Do you have him on speaker in the cab?
No.
Oh, OK.
But obviously I was talking in a way that was giving a few clues. At the end, the cab driver said, Piers, I don't want to pry, mate. He said, but was that Donald Trump? I said, actually, it was. And he said, God, he said, I've been driving cabs a long time. I said, I've never had anyone talking to the President of the United States in back of my cab before. So it's quite funny. But anyway, Trump was in a very good, upbeat mood. I had a long chat with him about a number of things. I've talked about Ukraine with him a number of times. And the one thing I think is always important with Donald Trump, and you put your finger on it, I've had screaming matches with him, literally. And then an hour later, we're laughing and joking, doing a fun interview. Literally, I had that two and a half years ago. So I always think with him, focus on what he does, not what he says, or the general drama and chaos. And secondly, understand that this is almost uniquely in modern times a Republican president in America who wants peace, not war. I mean, he hasn't, in his first term, declared war anywhere. He wants to end the two wars that are raging right now in Ukraine and Israel. And I think, although it was all very unedifying, although it shouldn't have happened, if you actually watch the whole press conference with Zelensky, and I interviewed Zelensky 2 weeks ago and had a long chat with him, so I got where his mindset was on this. If you watch the whole thing, you're actually getting to the nub of where this peace deal is likely to end up. And that's, to me, a bit of squabbling in front of the cameras shouldn't have happened. But let's not overreact. Focus on the big picture, which is how do we get to peace?
You were straight out on Twitter in the minutes after that interview, when everybody else was saying it's a disaster. You came out and said, no, there's going to be a deal. Was that because you just knew that's what Trump is about? Or was it something he'd said to you in that phone call on the Friday which made you think, don't overinterpret this bust-up?
I think a bit of all of that. I mean, I think that I had a chat with him just before the inauguration. We had a long chat on the phone, and he talked about Ukraine specifically in that. The Pentagon had said to him that in the previous 6 weeks, 100,000 people had been killed on the battlefield, Ukraine and Russia side. And he said, can you believe the numbers? This is like First World War. You know, this is like the worst imaginable kind of killing going on. He said, we have to end this. So I genuinely do think he wants peace. Now, what's he doing with Putin? Again, it's very interesting. I found an old clip. Someone tweeted it to me yesterday. Bill Clinton, who I interviewed about 10 years ago, talking about when he dealt with Vladimir Putin. And he said that the way he used to deal with him was in public, respectful, don't attack him, don't criticize him too much. Behind the scenes, get very tough. And he said, when we reach points of agreement, interestingly, he said, Putin never went back on his word to me. Now, when you listen to what Trump says, he's saying all the time, Vladimir hasn't done this to me, right? So it's very personal for him. The interaction with Russian leader, American leader for Trump is personal. He's betting the bank, I think, in this peace deal, that when it comes to it, the minerals deal, which I think is really smart, because it gets Trump's MAGA base off his back, right? He can say, look, it's not costing us money. In fact, we're making money, so don't worry about that. And he thinks by having a lot of Americans mining for minerals in Ukraine on a permanent basis, Vladimir Putin will not attack Ukraine. Zelensky, I think, is concerned That's fine while Donald Trump is in charge. What happens after that?
Yeah.
And I think that is where they've got to, which is what are the security guarantees?
When Sir Keir Starmer was there on Thursday, he was seen to have played an absolute blinder. You know, he flourishes this royal letter from the King, personally signed, and you could almost see Donald Trump purring as he takes it and asks the Prime Minister to read it. Calls today for that to be rescinded, torn up, cancelled. How important is that meeting to Donald Trump? How much does he adore the royal family? Would a threat of rescinding it mean anything at all? And can we leverage it to say that meeting's not going to happen for a while?
Well, he could, look.
Until you give security guarantees.
We can play games with Trump and we can threaten him and all this. It won't make any difference.
What does make a difference?
Well, I spoke to him about the royal visit. He was incredibly honoured on Friday morning when we spoke.
Won't play games with that, will he?
No, look, well, look, of course, every Prime Minister wants to leverage that relationship. I've got to say, I was surprised by the stick you guys were all giving Keir Starmer. I think he's played a blinder here. I think the way he conducted himself with Trump was a template in how to do it. I think the offering of a second state visit was playing to Trump's obvious love of the royal family. His mother was born in Scotland, raised there till she was 18. You know, they watched the coronation on television. You know, I've had a long chat with Trump about the royals many times, and he's a big, big royal fan. So the question then becomes, what is in our interest here? It's not just about Ukraine's interest. It's about our national interest too. The most interesting aspect of the last week for me, two things. Keir Starmer seems to have found his mojo as a Prime Minister, which I'm pleased to see, after a pretty rocky start, let's be honest. Secondly, the UK seems to be leading in Europe for the first time since Brexit. And I'm very pleased about that too. So we should be, I think, pleased to see our Prime Minister leading the European thing. And Starmer's a smart guy. He knows from Trump. Trump, quite rightly, believes the Europeans have not stepped up enough in their defence. We haven't. No other European country has. We're now stepping up more. Trump will respect that. But Trump's absolutely right. Look at the NATO spending pie. Why should America, if you're the Americans, this is how they think, why should America keep bailing us out, keep funding all the military operations way more than everybody else? And I think that's the key for the tension.
Can I ask a little bit more about those conversations?
You can ask me whatever you like, Susanna.
Yeah.
We go back a long way.
We do. I'm trying not to remember those particular moments.
Give me an eye roll for old time's sake. Come on.
I want to ask about those conversations you have with President Trump. Why does he ring you? What's his purpose?
Well, he rang me recently just to say he thought I was looking really good on TV, which is perfectly understandable. I do.
Has he not got better people to call about more important issues?
I'm sorry he doesn't ring you, but he obviously prefers ringing me. Look, I've known him 20 years. You got to remember, I've known him a long time.
I think you look great, but so does Susanna.
OK, that's not the material point.
I would never objectify her like that, Ed. I have to be honest.
OK. He is the key player in world affairs, and he's ringing you and saying, you look great, what's your workout plan?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
And then you extend that conversation for 15 minutes?
Yes.
Well, I can imagine you'd happily talk about yourself for 15 minutes, Piers. But surely the US president has a few more bon mots you can share with us.
Well, what did we talk about? We talked about Keir Starmer. He really liked Keir Starmer, which I was surprised. He said, look, we're not natural political bedfellows at all, obviously. He said, but I find him a straight shooter. I like him. He said, and he had a good time with him at the White House. He was very thrilled and honoured about the state visit. And look, with Trump, you either kiss the ring a bit or you choose deliberately not to. We all know he responds well to flattery. If he's the most powerful man in the world, which he is, it is pretty foolhardy of any country, frankly, to say to him, you know what, we're going to rough you up a bit. And my only advice for President Zelensky, who I think is an absolute hero, and I've interviewed him several times, and I think the guy and his country are amazing, and no one will bow to no one in my admiration. But the thing about President Zelensky in that moment was he just took the bait a bit, especially from J.D. Vance. And my advice before would have been to him, stay calm, be very grateful. Remember that a lot of the base conservative MAGA movement do not like the amount of money that's being spent in Ukraine because they want it spent on domestic issues in America.
That J.D. Vance point is, though, really interesting, because in the first term, I don't remember Donald Trump ever being in the room and kind of deferring a bit, whereas now we have Elon Musk.
Yeah.
On Friday, we had J.D. Vance kind of stepping in. It was actually J.D. Vance who picked the fight with Zelensky. It's a different kind of Trump.
Well, I'll tell you
who's allowing these guys to be big egos around.
Here's what's different with Trump, which I've really noticed, because I've spoken to him maybe 6-7 times since he got shot, and including a week after. I think he's a bit of a changed guy in his head. Not in the rhetoric, he's the same guy, but in his head, I think he really believes he got a second chance at life. He came within half an inch of getting assassinated. You know, his ear got grazed. Think about that, with an AR-15 bullet would have taken his brains out. So I think he feels that. I also think with the presidency, he had 4 years in the wilderness, right, wondering, would he ever get another chance of this? This time, he's hit the ground spectacularly hard in terms of initiative after initiative after initiative, 200 executive orders. I want peace in the Middle East. I want peace in Ukraine. This is a man on a mission for his legacy. And I think you have to, again, contextualise Trump with that in mind.
Is J.D. Vance chosen successor, though?
Well, I think he'd like to be. And he's certainly, look, J.D.
Vance would like that. But does Trump want J.D. Vance to be?
Well, he said directly he wasn't going to give him his endorsement yet, but that's not surprising. There'll be a few jostling for that position.
Do you think President Trump would like another term?
I don't think that's going to happen. So I think people can relax on that.
Well, constitutionally it can't, but I wonder whether he might like
I'm sure he'd love to. But I don't think he will. I just think that we should, as a country here, always think about what is in the UK's national interest. Keir Starmer said a very interesting thing about he's not looking at X and the other social media platforms for advice on how to handle this. He's trusting his gut instinct. Put the UK first, try and help Ukraine, but make sure that special relationship with the United States is rock solid, because they remain the biggest superpower in the world, and we cross them at our peril. But ultimately, does Trump want peace? Yes. Is that a good thing? Yes. Can we help him in Europe to get there by showing that we're stepping up collectively in the way that I think Starmer and Macron are leading the way? Yes. So, fingers crossed. Okay. I think in a few weeks, it could look very different.
And does he mind you not wearing a tie?
No, he didn't seem to mind at all. He didn't mind what Zelensky was wearing. He actually said several times, "I think you look really smart."
Yeah, that was a.
You should get rid of the tie. It's all a bit formal, mate. You want to just, in the YouTube world that I'm now in, ties are like the enemy.
I know, but look, in the end, Piers, as you know, I always do what the editor wants.
Or what Susanna tells you to do.
Well,
it's bad for her brand if you take the tie off, isn't it?
Nothing to do with me.
Come on,
have you seen how?
Are you going to make any admission here?
There's a door there. I'm not sure if you recognise it, Piers.
Oh, the rain's over there.